Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Kemi, and I'm here to talk about Beyond the Gates Season 2, Episode 63. Now, before we begin, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and turning on your post notifications so you'll know whenever I post. All right, so today's episode was a Jacob and Naomi centered episode. Um, Literally, all we got was really Jacob and Naomi's love story. I loved it. I thought it was really, really cute. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we start the episode off with um, Jacob, and um, we start the episode off with Jacob. So he had called Isaiah down to the hotel motel Holiday Inn, and he Jacob, not Jacob, Isaiah is happy that he got to see him and that he's okay, and he apologizes about the whole calling Naomi for the burner or whatever. And Jacob is just like, man, it's okay, let Ma know I'm doing good, X, Y, and Z, blah 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 blah. So then we see Naomi. She's at Orphe Jean and she's reminiscing about the night before, which was Easter night when she and Jacob were at the hotel or whatever. And Ashley comes in and Naomi tells her, oh, I saw Jacob. And they talk about hoping that he comes home soon or whatever, and not knowing what the case is about. So Ashley brought her a gift because again, this episode is their anniversary. So Ashley had brought her a gift. She recreated their party favors from their wedding, and Naomi is just like so happy, and she can't wait to share it with Jacob. And Ashley brought two, so just for that, so that they can share it or whatever. So Ashley asked her, do you want me to come over, or, do you want me to come over since, Jacob's not around? And Naomi's just like, nah, I'm about to go to my mom's house right now. She's pretending that she wants company, but who knows? She'll probably recreated our wedding cake or whatever. So, Naomi tells her about how her parents pressed her at Easter about Jacob, and she thinks that her parents think that they're headed for divorce or whatever. And Ashley says, "Well, it's better than knowing what he's really doing," which I don't think so, but whatever. And Naomi is just like, "Man, we should have come up with a better lie." Um, yeah, we should have come up with a better lie or whatever. And Ashley's just like, no one would believe any lie that you say because no one will believe that your Jacob would actually miss your anniversary. Um, and Naomi, yeah, and then Naomi says, well, we wouldn't have an anniversary if it wasn't for you. So then we get our first flashback. So we get the flashback of Naomi telling Ashley about how she met the hottie cop at a coffee shop, and she wouldn't give him her number. Um and what did she say? Okay, she wouldn't give Ashley was telling her, he made the first move, but you didn't give him. Naomi was just like, yeah, but I didn't give him my number, and now he's acting all shy. We flirt when we're at the courthouse, but he hasn't asked me for my number, and what is that all about? So she was just like, today she like in the flashback that day, she had told him that she would give him her number if he promised to use it, and he dipped as soon as he could, so he didn't get her number. So she was just like, and then she was just like, that cutie bailiff JT or whatever, he heard, and he was just like, I'd use your number, and I'd use your number, and I'd worship the goddess, who gave it to me. And then she was just like, Ashley was just like, okay, well then what's up? And she was just like, he wants to take me to a monster truck rally. And Ashley was just like, you are so bougie. She was like, I would go. She calls her a snob. And she was just like, I would go. Give him my number because I want to go places. And Naomi's just like, no, you want to go to Paris. So that's always been a through line. So the fact that whatever. So Naomi says there's something about the hottie cop and she just can't let it go. He hasn't asked her what her sign is, and he's funny, and she just wants to get to know him more. So Ashley says, well, then just ask him out. Like, why don't you ask him out? Naomi says, and then when it turns me down. If he turns me down and I have to look at him on a daily, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And Ashley was just like, well, Ashley says, well, when I'm right and you two fall madly in love, what am I gonna get? And Naomi was just like, I'll buy you a coffee. So that was the end of the flashback. So we get back to the present day with Naomi and Ashley still at Orphe Jeans, and they're laughing about it. And Ashley is just like, I helped you find the love. I helped you win the love of your life, and all I get is a latte. And Naomi was just like, yeah, that's not nearly enough. I'll get you a cookie too. And they start to laugh. And I Naomi be getting on my nerves, but I do sometimes like her friendship with Ashley. Ashley also gets on my nerves, but I like her when she's in this capacity and she's not the lead in the story. Because yeah. So again, we see Isaiah, and he wants to know, why did Jacob call him and not Naomi, since again it's their anniversary. And Jacob is just like, oh, I'm on call today, and I didn't want to bring Naomi down here and then have to bail on her. And Isaiah was just like, okay, well, can I give you some brotherly advice? And they joke with each other about it. He quotes bell hooks to him. And Jacob was just like, oh, okay, philosopher, did your new girl, inspire this or whatever? And Isaiah laughs it off, and then he asked, oh, did Pop say anything about that? And Jacob is just like, oh yeah, he told me that Ma and Eva had their own very special meet the parents or whatever. And Isaiah is just like, man, Ma probably thought I was gonna bring home a Deb like you. And Eva is far from that. And Jacob was just like, are you rewriting history? Ma didn't like Naomi either. But that didn't matter to me. Like, she was gonna be my it regardless, basically. Isaiah was just like, oh no, Isaiah says, from what I remember, you showed up with your own Issa Rae with a law degree. And Jacob says, nah. Naomi's last name was a red flag from jump. So then we get a flashback of I'm guessing it's their first date. Can't remember. I think it is their first date. So that's a flashback that we see. So, Jacob is shocked that Naomi knows about Orphe Jeans because that's where they went, because clearly that's where she always at. Naomi asks, how many times have we been in a room? Oh no, Naomi was just like, man, I wonder how many times we've been in a room and not known it, because they live in the DMV, they grew up in the DMV, they've probably been in the same circles all this time or whatever. And Jacob was just like, trust me, if we were in the same room, I would have noticed. I was just like, okay, Jacob. So she says, well, we were both at the SZA concert last month and you didn't notice. And he was just like, come to think of it, I looked real handsome that night. Was that you? I was just like, okay, Jacob, sir. I'm done. So he tells her that he has a buddy that works at this hole in the wall that SZA likes to drop at. Maybe they could, go one day or whatever. And she was just like, oh, I wonder if JT likes it too. And he was just like, okay, I deserve that. You right. I deserve that. I should have asked you out. She says, yeah, and you still didn't. I had to ask you out. And he says, well, you did curve me at the coffee shop. And she was just like, that was different. I wasn't about to give my number to a stranger. Not about to do it. And he was just like, you right, you right, you right, you right. I'm gonna give it to you when I can give it to you. Um, he says, you know you fine and brilliant, and my ego couldn't handle that. And also you a Dupree. Um, and she asked, so can you handle that? And he says, it's not about what I can handle, it's about what your family name means. Black American royalty. And then she tells me, being a Dupree isn't what you think it is. And he was just like, oh, it's even better. And she was just like, no, it's different. We're all blazing our own trails, our own paths. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be something good, something, something that's additive to the world or whatever. He says, well, that sounds like a mission. She says, she doesn't need the fancy. She's done all those things. She's worn the clothes. She's been to the parties. She isn't knocking it, and she ain't returning the clothes. I know that's right. But what she wants out of life is different. Than it's different than what all that entails. Um, she wants what did she say? What she wants out of life is something good inside the courtroom and out. And he says, well, you sound like, you give one hell of a closing argument. And she says, she could have taken a place at her dad's firm, or she could have used her grand's fame to launch her music career. And he was just like, oh, wait, so you can sing? And she was just like, you don't get that yet. I said, they're so cute. So she says, being a uh, she says, being a public defender, no, she likes being a public defender and not a nepo baby, and that's how she Dupree's. And he says, I want to do the same. What did he say? Oh, he says, I want to do the same, do good. Um, and she says, oh no, she says, cop families have a legacy of their own. And he was just like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm over here coming at you for being a Dupree, and I'm following in my daddy footsteps. So who am I to talk about come at you about, your last name, basically, or whatever. He says that, would he still be a cop if his daddy wasn't one? Maybe. Is his father his superhero? Absolutely. She says her family's been friends with the station, and they all speak highly of Elon or whatever. Um, and Jacob must be really proud. And he smiles or whatever. She gets a message, and she realizes that she's late for court, and she was just like, oh, the judge is going to kill me. He's not a fan of tardiness. And Jacob was just like, oh, Judge X, Y, and Z, he nice. And she was just like, in what universe is he nice? That man don't play. What is you talking about? And he was just like, he's my scoutmaster, and I'll tell him what was up, and you'll be good. And she was just like, you're an actual Boy Scout. And then he was just like, man, let's go to the court. So that's the end of that flashback. So then we get back to the present, and we see Ashley and Naomi, and Ashley is asking, did he ever show you his merit badges? And Naomi was just like, yeah, and I helped him earn some new ones. And Ashley was just like, I helped him earn some new ones and some bad ones too, or something like that. And Ashley was just like, no wonder Darlene didn't like you. I said, y'all are stupid. Oh man, Naomi, and then Naomi says, man, it wouldn't have mattered how she behaved. No one was good enough for her baby boy, for her boys. When it came to Jacob and his mom, her last name was a strike against her. So we get the flashback of Naomi meeting Darlene for the first time. And I was just like, Darlene is a trip. And of course, they met at Orphe Jeans. Because that is Naomi's favorite place. So Naomi was just like, it's funny, we've never properly met before. And Darlene was just like, oh, we've met. You and your sisters nearly ran me over at the police fundraiser. Y'all were dressed like little princesses. Y'all were adorable and everything, but it's not too late for home training. I said, oh Lord, they were kids, Darlene. Like, girl, what? Like, girl, I need to know how old they had to be kids if they were dressed like little princesses. Why are you holding that against her right now? Damn. Darlene is a trip, but I love her. So, um, Naomi was just like, my grand would agree. And she says Anita's from Chicago originally, and Darlene, oh no, yeah, Naomi says, my grand would agree. Darlene says, no, it sounds like a good, good old Southern manners. And ask where her where Anita's from. And so Naomi says, she's originally from Chicago, and Darlene says, oh, my people from South Carolina, and I'm guessing you're not familiar with that. And Naomi was just like, oh yeah, me and my soror spent spring break in Mount Pleasant. Um, and she was completely charmed. She was completely charmed with the sun. She was completely Southern charmed by the people and the sunsets. And then Darlene cuts her off, and she's just like, yeah, that zip code is nothing but pleasant, but nothing but luxury. Um, she says, let me see. She says, um, yeah, that place is nothing. That zip code is nothing but luxury. Naomi says, I'm sure your hometown is lovely, and asks where she's from. And Darlene is just like, where the real people live. Girl, where are you from? That's what she asked you. She didn't ask you any of that other ish. She just asked you, where are you from? Why you got to go where the real people live? Girl, clearly real people live everywhere. But whatever. I love it. That's a boy mom for you right there. So Naomi tries to, tell her that she didn't mean to offend her or anything like that. But again, Darlene cuts her off and says, I may not have gone to a fancy school or been a part of sorority, but I am proud. And Naomi was just like, you should be. Being a dispatcher is one of the most valued jobs. Period. It takes nerves of steel, which can't be taught. And Darlene is like, okay, okay. So then Elon chimes in, and he was just like, you want my wife. My wife is who you want on your side in times of crisis. So Naomi says, not everyone goes to college. And Darlene was just like, indulge me. Who in your circle didn't go to college? I said, ma'am, you was just getting a little bit of, a little bit of something, and girl. So Naomi tells her, my grand didn't go to college. My mom did. Yeah, my grand and my mother didn't go to college. Anita was originally from Cabrini Green. She made it to the top of her charts without stepping foot on a campus, and her mom stepped off the runway to raise her and her sister, while and help her dad start his law firm. And Darlene says, is behind every good man, there's a woman that's pulling the strings. Is that what you planning to do for my son? I said, oh Lord, girl, okay. Naomi says, I like Jacob just as he is. And Jacob says, thank you, baby. I said, all right, you better call her baby in front of your mama. Your father, you know what? We gonna come back to that. So he tells her, man, Ma, seriously? And so we end that flashback. I said, they are a mess. So we go to we go back to the present. We see Jacob and Isaiah. Jacob is getting a text, and then he tells Isaiah, if you want Eva to stick, she's gonna have to rise above Mama Shade. Um, and that's it, point blank, period. He says, okay, he got to leave, but then he asked Isaiah to do him a favor. So we see Danny and Naomi. She's pouring her cider. And Danny is saying, the doctor told her to keep her alcohol count low because of the BRCA gene, which she's doing every sixth Tuesday of the month. I'm done with Danny. So she says, since Naomi didn't inherit the gene, does she want the real bubblies? And she was just like, no, I'm good with the cider or whatever. So they toast to Naomi's anniversary. Naomi says, she was in the she knows that Danny was in their corner the whole time. Well, except for when she fell for a different guy or whatever, and she couldn't think of his name. And Naomi says, well, you were the one who encouraged me to run away with him. And Danny was just like, well, that's because I thought you was going to use your voice to change the world like your grand. But you decided to use your voice in a different reason, and to help those who don't have a voice. I'm always proud of you or whatever. So Naomi thanks her. And then she was asking about the guy or whatever. So we get a flashback of, oh yeah, she had asked about the guy or whatever, and they couldn't remember. And then Danny was just like, well, she was just like, I wonder where he is. And Naomi was just like, still booking gigs and doing all of that, and he right where he belonged. And Danny is just like, and you're right with whom you belong with. So then we get a flashback of Danny asking Naomi about an outfit that she was going to wear for Winterfest or whatever. And Naomi was just like, why are you doubting yourself? And Danny was just like, don't you remember what happened? Oh, she was asking for an outfit that she was going to wear for whatever. Yeah, for the next Winterfest. And she was just like, don't you remember what happened at last year's Winterfest, when your dad basically, once we got home, he basically made it seem like I looked like a hot mess or whatever. And Naomi was just like, well, that was rude. And it's just like, yes, it is. So the fact that, Danny, you would even think to go back to this man when clear, I mean, we've known that y'all have always had issues, but the fact that you're even possibly entertaining it, it's a no for me. So so Danny asked her about the dress again, and Naomi tells her, trust your gut and forget about Bill or whatever. So then she asked for an extra ticket for Jacob, and Danny was just like, oh, okay, you know what this means. You know what this means, bringing him to family and society. And Naomi was just like, if the Fairmont Crest ladies want to gossip, then they should gossip about the fact that we're going to be living together. Danny is just like, okay. And Naomi says, he's always at my place, or it's either Naomi says, either he's always at my place or I'm always at his place. So it just makes sense that we would live together. And Danny was just like, don't act like this. Don't act like this decision was made up from here when we know it's coming from a place lower. And Naomi was just like, Mom. And Danny was just like, your heart, baby girl. And she was just like, your heart, dirty girl. I love Danny and her girls. Like, I love Danny with her girls. I love it. So Danny says, you wouldn't be taking this step unless you were sure. And Naomi was just like, I love him and he loves me equal. He loves me. And then they squeal. And that's the end of that flashback. So we get back to the present day. We see Danny telling Naomi that their, parents always want better for their next generation. And she says her girls are killing it. Jacob is a good man and he was raised right. And Naomi says, whatever Elon and sorry, she says, whatever Elon and Darlene did with their boys, did their whatever Elon and Darlene did raising them, their boys always show up for their woman. And I was just like, can Luke please come into town for Kat? Because that is what Kat needs. Because we see it. Even with Isaiah, he is always showing up for that girl, for Eva. He is in her corner firmly, squarely, and he ain't gonna let nobody say nothing bad about her, even though he's only known her for 2 months. But he is in her corner. Can we please get that for Kat? Because Tomas, get out of my face. So Danny says, you got a different set of skills from your father, how to make a deal. Oh, she says, you got a different set of skills from your father, how to make a deal. And she'll just like, remember when you moved in with him, you had your plans were more laid than people's edges. I said, these people are crazy. But that is a true conversation with some black folks. That is something we would say, girl, your plans more laid than some people's edges. I can't. Well, and Naomi says, well, I learned a lot from you too, Mom, and I thought prepping would keep the nerves at bay. And Danny says, and how did that work out? And she says, not even close. So we get a flashback of Jacob and Naomi moving into their new place. So they're eating pizza. He says she got sauce on her face and she's trying to wipe it, and then he starts kissing it off of her or whatever. Ashley comes over with the air mattress. Jacob takes it to the back or whatever. Um, and Ashley offers to help them unpack, and then they hear Jacob blowing up the air mattress, and she was just like, "Let me leave so y'all can Christian your place or whatever." Naomi tells her, "No, stay." Da 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 da. Jacob comes back. And says, "Oh, this is a soft top. This is a nice air mattress. It's got a little soft top on it or whatever." And Ashley was just like, "Yeah, Naomi's never slept on an air mattress before, so I have to get a good one." And Naomi was just like, "Please, I was a queen of sleepovers. I thought I was Raven Simone in the Princess Diaries too." I said, "I'm done." So Ashley leaves them, and Jacob asks if she wants another slice, and she was just like, "No, I want to test out that air mattress." So they kiss, and that's the end of the flashback. So we see in the present day, we see Jacob on a stairwell by the wall, and he gets a text, and he's thinking about Naomi or whatever. So we go back to Danny and Naomi, and Danny is telling Naomi that Bill had got the Reverend to take out the part in the ceremony when it says, "Who gives this woman to this man?" Because he thought it was barbaric. And Naomi laughs, and she was just like, "Yeah, because I told Jacob not to ask Bill for my hand because I thought it would be affront to my agency." And she was just like, "Poor Jacob, he was caught between two stubborn Hamiltons." And Danny, she says something to the effect of, what he did. And then she was just like, "Well, what he would have done." And then Naomi was just like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And she was just like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" So then we get the flashback of Jacob asking for Danny's hands. He's real nervous. He's pacing back and forth as he's giving his speech on why he wants to marry Naomi. And Danny is just like, "Well, what are you asking me?" And so he asked, and she was just like, "Of course." And they hug, and we go back to present day, and Naomi wants to know why she never told her. And Danny was just like, "You needed to hear." She was just like, "Why are you telling me now?" And she was just like, "Because you needed to hear how wonderful Jacob is today. Like, you needed to hear that today." Because again, Danny and Bill probably think that they're heading to a divorce. So she was just like trying to say, he's a good man, Savannah, basically. So um Naomi says he's wonderful, and um she says Jacob wanted you to know that he was offering me a future where he would never take anything away from me, like. And she stops, and Danny says, "Like your father did with me." And Danny says, "Well, your man kept his word." And Naomi says, "Yeah, I knew I was getting married." She was just like, "So you knew I was getting married and you kept it a secret this whole time?" And Danny says, "Yeah, I even helped plan the proposal, even though you did everything you could to blow it." So we get the flashback of Naomi in her bonnet, and she's in the bed reading, and she even had a bad day or whatever. And Jacob is telling her like, "Oh, he's just like, you're supposed to be meeting Ashley. He's dressed in his cop uniform or whatever. You're supposed to be getting ready to meet Ashley." Naomi was just like, "Nah, I don't want to go." I'm good here. I just want to watch TV with my man, catch up on the show. He's still trying to, give her excuses on why she needs to go. And she's just like, bruh, if you really want me to go, like you can go. I could be here. I don't need to go anywhere. If you really want to be out the house, go. I'm not stopping you. So he was just like, fine. So he starts he he turns on some music, and I can't remember if he dimmed the light or not. He took some flowers and he like broke them and sprayed them everywhere or whatever. And he proposes. He like, tells her, does his little speech on why he wanted to propose, says, I'm supposed to be in a tux, you're supposed to be in this dress, there's supposed to be this, all this other stuff behind me, all this other good stuff, proposes to her. She says yes, she loves the ring. He tells her, my mom gave me my grandma's necklace, I melted it down and added the stone. And then she's just like, oh my God, I'm in my bonnet. Oh my God. And it was just like, yes, girl, you're in your bonnet because he was telling you, get your tail up so that we can go. And you didn't want to, but this is y'all. So this is where we are. So he tells her, yeah, he tells her, yeah, and I had planned all of this. This is what it was supposed to be. Da 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 da. Now you need to get dressed because our parents are back. Our friends and family are back at your parents' place for the party or whatever. So we end the flashback. So we get back into present day, and Danny says, if he didn't love you all, if she didn't love him already, that proposal would have nailed it. So they're singing his praise. Naomi says she didn't think anyone could get past. Sorry about that. So Naomi was saying, she didn't think anyone could get past her walls, and Danny says, that mystery training means Jacob is stepping it up as a detective. And Naomi says, yeah, Jacob pledged that he would never hold me back from my dreams. How can I hold him back from his? And Danny says that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. And Naomi says that's what love is, supporting your person as they become who they're meant to be. And Danny says, yes, she didn't know it her first go round, but she knows it this time, and maybe she learned it from them. So Danny tells her, they hug or whatever. Naomi's getting ready to leave. Danny's telling her to stay, and she says no. She's gonna go back home to do the tradition of looking through the wedding album, like the album like Anita and Vernon do. I think they do that at the beginning of the year or Christmas. I can't remember when they did it, but she took that tradition from them, so she's gonna go home and continue that tradition or whatever. Danny tells her she should also look at it because since she should look at it because she will see all the people that were at the wedding, because we don't they had eyes for each other, so they don't remember who was at the wedding or whatever, something like that. So she says, oh yeah, so we get a flashback of them saying their vows, and the priest telling them to say I do, kiss, you're now married, them hugging their family or whatever. And then we finally get the the infamous what happened with Isaiah at Jacob and Naomi's wedding. And I'm not even gonna hold y'all. I was on Elon's side. I don't care. I was on Elon's side. So basically, we see Isaiah looking like a bum, looking like somebody who's crashing a wedding. He got on mismatched jacket with a different color pants. He literally looks like somebody who found out there was having a wedding at the country club, and he said, bet I'm gonna go so I can get some free food. He got on some Air Force Ones. He looks like somebody who came up off the street and crashed this wedding. That is what he looks like. And he is at the bar drinking, getting drunk. You are crashing my wedding and drinking on my dime. That is what it looks like. So Elon approaches him and tells him and Elon get into it or whatever. So they're arguing because Elon is just like, um you couldn't even be like, you couldn't be a brother enough to wear a monkey suit and be a part of your brother's wedding because you mad at me. And Isaiah was just like, yeah, basically. And Elon was just like, you couldn't even give your mama the courtesy of seeing all her boys dressed together and standing in line together for your brother's big day. And he was basically like, yeah, no, I couldn't. So they're arguing. um Isaiah was just like, man, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of you. And then he turns around to leave, and Elon grabs him and is just like, don't turn your back on me. And he yanks himself from him, and then glass shatters and all this other stuff. Darlene comes over and she was just like, this is not the Hawthorne way. This is not how we do things. Bill comes over and he's just like, is everything okay? Do you need, like, son, do you need some talk? Do you need to be talked to? Like, do you want to talk or whatever? Darlene was just like, this is a family thing. And Bill is just like, in case you forgot, we are now family. Our kids just got married, so we all family now, basically. And Isaiah is just like, man, nah, I don't want to talk. I'm good. Da 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 da. And he leaves. He's getting ready to leave, and Elon's just like, yeah, let him leave. Let him be the bum that he is, or something like that. So Isaiah takes a look back at Jacob and Naomi, and they're looking at him all sad, and then he leaves, and that's what had happened. So yeah, child, when I say I was so irritated because I was just like, they acted like it was something big. It wasn't even that big. It was Isaiah's fault because, sir, you couldn't put aside your differences with your daddy for your brother. Your love for your brother should have outweighed your hate for your daddy. But clearly, everything has to be about you because you made this about you and not about your brother. Again, you couldn't even put aside your differences for a wedding that was probably going to last maybe 6, 7, 8 hours tops. You couldn't even do that. It just had to be, yeah, no, I'm not. No, sir. You were wrong. Elon was wrong for approaching you because he could have left you alone, but you were wrong. It's Yeah, you were wrong. Period. Point blank. So in the flashback, we get to the present day. We see Isaiah. He's looking at a picture of Naomi and Jacob, and he's in their house, and he's just like, I'm late, but I'm here now, or whatever. So Bill comes over to Nate to visit Naomi at her place, and he wants to know how she's doing. And he's like, I kept my mouth shut, but this so-called training that Jacob is doing, and Naomi cuts him off, and she says, where was the fatherly concern when you asked my husband to arrest my mom? And she tells him, you sent us spinning while you moved forward with your honeymoon plans. So we get the flashback of what happened last season with after Jacob had arrested Danny for what she did at Bill and Haley's wedding. Um Bill, we get, come back to the present day. Bill says, I should have made a different call, and he know things, how things can fester between a couple, and if mistakes were made. And Naomi cuts him off again, and she tells him she and Jacob aren't him and Danny. And pro tip: sleeping with your daughter's best friend isn't great for marital health. He tells her he wants her and Jacob to do as I say and not as I did. She says, well, Jacob forced the issue and until it wasn't an issue anymore, and he's lovingly resentless. So we get the flashback of when they made up last season or whatever. She tells him Jacob isn't making excuses to stay away. They're missing each other like crazy. Um, they're missing each other like crazy. And so, he was just like, all right, cool. So we see he's getting ready to leave, and she tells him, I'm glad that you stopped by. And he says, well, your wedding is still his highest pinnacle. And she was just like, None of yours were. And he was just like, nah, too many nerves at the first one and too many bullets at the second one. I said, I'm done. And he said it was all courtesy of your mama. I'm so done. So they laugh, and he says, um, they laugh, and he says, I said my piece, and to tell Jacob your favorite father-in-law sends his regards or whatever. So they hug and he leaves, and then Naomi goes into her room, and she sees that they're roses and stuff all over the bed or whatever, and there's a bouquet with a note. So she reads the note, and in the note he's basically telling her, I love you, I wish I was there, imagine I'm there. So when she says that, she closes her eyes, and then we see Jacob sitting beside her, kissing on her as he's saying all the stuff that he's going to do to her, when he gets home or whatever, and they're gonna make it better. And then she opens her eyes, and then we get a screen split of both of them like looking off into the distance and looking sad, and that's how the episode ends. So yeah, I thought this was a really cute episode. I love Jacob and Naomi. Naomi is still the op to me, but I love her and Jacob. But yes, this was a cute episode. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and turning on your post notifications so you'll know whenever I post. Get down in the comments. Tell me what you guys thought of this episode, and I will see you guys in the next one.